I installed the camera system in March. Not because anything had happened, because my neighbor had a package stolen, and I decided the $40 a month for a system was worth the peace of mind. 4 cameras. Front door, back door, driveway, side yard. I set them up on a Saturday afternoon, tested the angles, made sure everything was recording, and then I essentially forgot about them. That is the honest truth. I checked the notifications for the first few weeks. Every motion alert, every passing car, every cat that wandered through the frame. Then the novelty wore off, and I stopped checking unless something specific prompted me to look. I lived alone. I worked long hours. The cameras were running, and I was not watching them. For 4 months, nothing notable. In July, I came home from work on a Tuesday evening and noticed something. My car, parked in the driveway, had a door that was not quite closed. Not open, not obviously ajar, just not fully latched. The kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't looking carefully. I was looking carefully because it was wrong. I locked my car. Every time. Habit. I checked the car. Nothing appeared to be missing. The door closed and latched when I pushed it. I told myself I had been careless that morning. I went inside. I made dinner. Watched something. Went to bed. At 11 p.m. my phone buzzed. A motion alert from the driveway camera. I looked at it. The driveway was empty. The car was there. Nothing visible. I put the phone down. In the morning, I went back and looked at the previous night's footage from the beginning. I want to describe what I saw. At 2:17 a.m., 3 weeks before the Tuesday of the unlatched door, a figure appeared in my driveway. Not approaching from the street, already in the driveway, moving along the side of my car. They tried the door handle. The car was locked. They moved to the next door. Tried that. They stood at the car for approximately 2 minutes. Then they walked back down the driveway and out of frame. I had been asleep 20 feet away. I had not heard anything. I had not known. I went back further in the footage. The same figure, 7 days before that, standing at the end of my driveway, looking at the house, for 4 minutes, then leaving, and further back still. 3 separate appearances in a 6-week period before the Tuesday of the unlatched door. I pulled the Tuesday morning footage. I watched myself leave for work. I watched myself get in the car, drive away. For minutes after my car turned out of frame, a figure walked into the driveway. They tried the car door. It was locked. I had locked it that morning. I had been right about my habit. But they must have tried it with more force than I noticed when I came home. Enough to work the latch slightly. Enough that it didn't catch fully when they tried it. Enough that I noticed when I got back. The footage had shown me something I didn't know. That someone had been coming to my driveway regularly over 6 weeks while I was sleeping and after I left for work. That they had learned my schedule. That they knew when I was home and when I wasn't. I called Phoenix PD with the footage. The detective who reviewed it said, 6 weeks of documented approach behavior. This is not opportunistic. This is someone who identified your property and is working up to something. The footage changes this from a vague concern to a documented pattern. We can work with this. The individual was identified from the footage. A man with prior burglary convictions. He had 3 other properties on the same street flagged with similar approach behavior caught on other residents' cameras. The cameras had caught what no one had seen. Because the cameras don't sleep. Because the cameras don't dismiss motion alerts at 11 p.m. Because the cameras keep watching when you stop. Check your footage. Not just when something happens. Routinely. Scroll back further than you normally would. The camera may have seen something you haven't looked at yet. This story takes place in broad daylight. I want to say that first because I think it matters. Not a dark road. Not a late night. Not a parking garage. A shopping center parking lot on a Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock. People everywhere. Families. Other shoppers. Cars coming and going. Full daylight. Populated. Busy. And nobody saw what the camera caught. I had been shopping. An ordinary Saturday. A large shopping center, the kind with a grocery anchor and a dozen other stores. I had been inside for about 40 minutes. When I came out, I loaded my bags into the car. Got in. Drove home. That was the whole experience. Nothing remarkable. Nothing that felt wrong. 2 days later, I received a call from Charlotte PD. They had been reviewing parking lot camera footage in connection with an incident at the shopping center. an incident involving another individual that had occurred on that same Saturday. My car appeared in the footage. They wanted to know if I had noticed anything unusual. I said I hadn't. I said the whole experience had been completely ordinary. They said, "We'd like you to come in and watch something." I went in. A detective sat with me, and we watched the footage together. I watched myself come out of the shopping center with my bags. I watched myself load the trunk. And I watched, on the screen, from the camera angle above the lot, a man I had not noticed in the moment. He was 15 feet behind me when I came out of the store. He followed the same path I took to my car, not directly, not obviously, but consistently, matching my direction with a natural-looking cover of moving toward another row of cars. When I stopped at my trunk, he stopped, pretended to check his phone. In my peripheral vision, had I been paying attention, he would have looked like someone pausing to glance at their screen. I was not paying attention. I was loading bags. He watched me load the bags. He watched me get in the car. He stood there until I pulled out of the space. Then he walked back toward the store entrance. The detective said, "We've identified this individual as connected to the other incident I mentioned. He was working the lot that afternoon. You were one of several people he followed to their vehicles. You left before he made a move. The next person he followed didn't leave in time." I sat with the footage for a long time. The man who had been 15 feet behind me, who had stopped when I stopped, who had watched me load my car, who I had not registered at all in the moment. In the moment, he had been invisible. On the camera, he was the only thing I could see. The detective said, "This is why we ask people to look around before loading. Not suspiciously, just look. A full scan before you open the trunk. You put yourself in a vulnerable position loading bags. Head down, hands full, back to the lot. A scan first costs nothing, and sometimes just the act of looking is enough to change someone's calculation. Look before you load. A full scan of the area around your vehicle before you open the trunk. Not dramatically, not in a way that announces itself. Just look. Make eye contact with the lot. Know what is around you before you make yourself vulnerable to it." The camera showed me what looking would have shown me. I just wasn't looking. I want to tell you about 47 nights, because the camera caught all of them, and I only knew about the last one. My neighbor, I'll call her Diane, had a camera on the front of her house pointing at the street. She had installed it after a car was broken into on our block. The camera covered the street. It also, incidentally, covered the front of my house, which was directly across from hers. I did not know Diane's camera covered my house. I did not know Diane had been reviewing her footage one evening in September and had seen something that made her call me. I answered the phone and she said, "I need to show you something. Are you home?" She came over with her laptop. She sat at my kitchen table and opened the footage. She said, "I'm going to start 3 weeks ago. I went back this far because of what I found last night. I went back to find the first time." She pressed play. Footage from 3 weeks earlier. My street at 2 a.m. Quiet. Nothing moving. And then a figure. Walking on the sidewalk in front of my house. Slowly. Stopping in front of my house. Looking at it. Standing there for approximately 90 seconds. Then walking on. Diane pressed fast forward. Moved to the next night. Same time. Same figure. Same slow walk. Same stop. Same 90 seconds of standing and looking at my house. Night after night. Not every night, but most of them. 47 appearances in 61 days. 47 nights of a figure standing in front of my house at 2 a.m. that I had slept through, that I had no knowledge of, until Diane's camera showed me. On the 47th night, the night before she called me, the figure had not just stood on the sidewalk. He had walked up my front path, to my porch, and stood at my front door for 4 minutes. I watched this on Diane's laptop at my kitchen table in the daylight of a Tuesday afternoon. I watched a man stand at my front door at 2 a.m. for 4 minutes. I had been sleeping 20 feet away. I called 911 from the kitchen while Diane was still there. The detective who came, when he watched the footage, said, 47 appearances over 2 months. This is not random. This is someone who has identified your home specifically. The progression, sidewalk to path to porch, tells us this is escalating. The footage is exceptional documentation. This is exactly what we need. The individual was identified from the footage. He lived 6 blocks away. He had no prior criminal record. which the detective said made the footage even more critical, because without it there was no documented history to draw on. The footage was the history. 47 nights of documented approach behavior, ending at my front door. A restraining order was issued. Charges were filed. Diane's camera, installed for car break-ins, pointed at the street, had caught 47 nights of something I had no idea was happening. I have a camera on my own front now, and I have an understanding with my neighbors about camera coverage, who covers what overlaps, what gaps exist. Because Diane's camera caught what mine would have. If I'd had one, your neighbor's camera may see your house. Your camera may see their street. Know the coverage. Talk to the people around you. Because sometimes the camera that protects you belongs to someone else. I lived alone on a rural property outside a small town in Oregon. 5 acres, a house, a detached garage, a long gravel driveway, about 300 feet from the road to the house. I had a camera at the end of the driveway, not at the house, at the road end, pointing outward, at the road and the entrance to the property. I had installed it after a neighbor reported a vehicle on their property that had no business being there. The camera gave me visibility of who turned onto my driveway before they ever reached the house. On a Friday night in October, I went to bed at 10:30. I was asleep by 11. At 1:14 a.m., the driveway camera triggered a motion alert. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I did not wake up. The phone buzzed again at 1:17 a.m. A second alert. I did not wake up. At 1:22 a.m., my exterior house lights triggered. I had a motion sensor on the house lights, separate from the camera system, closer to the house. The lights coming on woke me. I lay in bed and looked at the ceiling and listened. Gravel. The specific sound of footsteps on the gravel surrounding my house's foundation. I picked up my phone. I called 911. I stayed on the line. I did not go to a window. I stayed in my bedroom with the door locked and told the dispatcher exactly what I was hearing. The footsteps went around the house. I could track them. The gravel was consistent. The sound moved. Front, side, back. At the back, the footsteps stopped. I heard my back door handle. Tested once. Twice. Locked. The footsteps moved again. Back around the side. Toward the front. Then, the gravel sound faded. The footsteps were gone. Sheriff's deputies arrived 11 minutes later. They found no one on the property. They found marks at the back door consistent with the handle being tested. They found at the base of the back door evidence that something had been used to attempt the lock, fresh marks on the lock housing. In the morning, the detective reviewed my camera footage. He called me in to watch it with him. The driveway camera had recorded a vehicle turning onto my property at 1:14 a.m. A truck, dark, moving slowly with no headlights. No headlights on a 300-foot gravel driveway at 1 a.m. The truck parked at the midpoint of the driveway, out of sight from the road and out of sight from the house. 2 people got out. 2. I had heard one set of footsteps on the gravel at the house. The footage showed one figure moving toward the house. The second figure had stayed at the truck, watching the road. A lookout. 2 people. Planned. Coordinated. A truck parked where it couldn't be seen from either end of the driveway. The detective said, "The camera at the road end caught what you couldn't have known from inside the house. You knew one person was at your door. You didn't know there were 2. You didn't know the truck was at the midpoint of your driveway. The footage tells us this was organized. Planned. Not opportunistic." He said, "The lights waking you, that was the thing. The motion sensor on the house lights. That is what broke their timeline. A house that lights up when they're already at the foundation means someone is awake or a system is active. That changes the calculation. You had a camera that documented everything. You had a light system that woke you. You called 911 before you went to a window. Every one of those decisions was correct. And I want you to understand, the footage shows how close this came. 2 people. A truck parked out of sight. A practiced approach. The light and the call ended it. The footage shows us exactly what the light and the call ended. The vehicle was identified from the footage. Both individuals were identified. Both had prior records for home burglary. Both were charged. The footage was entered as evidence. The footage that my phone had tried to show me at 1:14 and 1:17 a.m. while I slept through the notifications. The footage that the lights had ultimately made matter. I sleep with my phone volume up now. Not on silent. not on vibrate, up, because the camera saw them at the driveway, 300 feet and 8 minutes before they reached my door. The camera gave me 8 minutes. The phone notifications were the 8 minutes. I just wasn't hearing them. I hear them now.